Go on then. Arsenal, top of the league, 5 points clear.
Yeah.
How did you... No, we'll talk a bit more about Arsenal later on.
Season.
How did you react this unique season? How did you react to the City result?
You know,
Ivan Toney, 98th minute.
I can't lie, man. I was jumping up. And then you realise...
when they put 10 minutes up, or when you realised it was going to be 10 minutes of added time, did you think City are going to score here?
Yeah, you think that they're going to do what they do. And then Ivan Toney, but Brentford, they deserve to win that game in the way their game plan went. It was perfect. So when he did score that goal at the death, of course I jumped up. And then you realise... Then you realise, oh my gosh, now Arsenal have to make sure that they take advantage of it. So they have to beat Wolves. That hadn't happened yet. So they've done it, and that was good. So you go into the break. You go into the break 5 points clear, but again, the main...
You don't have to talk like a manager. You can just talk like a fan.
I'm getting to it. The main thing is that top four is what the target was. So you still want to go for that.
Oh, it's
and then whatever happens after that, you just take it. But like, yes, you know, we're contenders. We're there. We are contenders.
Yeah, it's all about top four for us. So that's what Righty thinks, isn't it?
You know, finishing first is still in the top four, isn't it?
Manchester City's late defeat and Arsenal's pretty comfortable win means that it's a 5-point gap. We can't say this enough, a 5-point gap at the top of the table. Look, at the beginning of the show, you're playing it down. You're talking like a manager.
Yeah.
As a fan, to watch all of that happening at the weekend, you love that club.
Absolutely.
And you watch them. Mikel Arteta, you've been on his side right from the beginning. There's so many young players in there who are developing. Feels as though things are starting to come together. They've sprinkled a little bit of Premier League title-winning magic in there with Zinchenko and Jesus.
Yeah.
And suddenly, Arsenal look like the real deal.
Yeah. And I think that you mentioned Zinchenko and Jesus, and they're the ones who are going to be vitally important to what's going on now because they know what it's like to be in the lead and be 5 points clear, knowing what you have to do in the next game. And with the Man City side that we've seen down the years, and Liverpool as well, I have to get credit for as well, they've done what they've needed to do. So when you see Manchester City lose against Brentford, which no one saw coming, Brentford were magnificent and should get all the plaudits for the win because they went there with a way of playing that Manchester City just couldn't deal with, and they executed. And for Arsenal to then watch that, I heard that they were watching it on the coach and they were cheering as well.
Arteta said that, didn't he? Yeah.
So then what was good about that is that...
They said, what was the reaction like on the coach when Tony got the winner? He went, as you would imagine.
As you would imagine. And that is like, that's how probably everybody involved with Arsenal would have reacted. And then what you want to say is, and see is, OK, now you've got to go there and you can't lose. That's the main thing. If you win, brilliant, but you cannot lose. And that is what I was more impressed with than anything else. It was a very good performance. Arsenal have had a lot of possession in a lot of their games and dominated the ball. You just wanted to make sure that they dominated the ball and got the chances and won the game, because now it's in their hands to do what they're doing. Yes, we've got this break, but it's in their hands now. They know that if they don't lose or they draw games and City slip up again and they win, it's in their hands. So people say, can they do it? Of course they can do it, but a lot has got to go right.
People
for it
are
to
scared
happen.
to say that, though, in a weird way. I've said it many times. Like, if no one's going to challenge Manchester City, we might as well not have the league. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're beatable. They're a top team, but Arsenal, I've been saying it for like 2 months now. Yeah, I've always said that they can push and, you know, they deserve to be there. I feel like people are waiting for them to drop off. They're like, oh, they need another striker. They don't have the strength in depth. Well,
and even when you beat
wait and see.
You beat Liverpool and say, yeah, but look at Liverpool going through.
Or when you came back against Fulham, it's like, oh, yeah, you can't really win.
All you do as Arsenal is like, just let the noise go on and just carry on doing what you're doing. And that is why, at the moment, I'm very impressed with the mental side of what Arsenal players are going through at the moment. And they're dealing with it at the moment. And
and I know you've been saying for a couple of months, Ian, and that's what I was going to sort of come to you on, because there's definitely been people saying Arsenal can do this, it's possible. But in every title-winning season, it feels like there's a moment. And this weekend felt like it could be that for Arsenal, just because of the way that City lost that game in the 98th minute, the way that Arsenal went out with the cool heads that we saw in the game that followed. And they go in, and suddenly, with the gap, with that 5-point gap, there's room for them now to step up. They can not relax because they don't want to take that pressure off them, but it just feels that they can breathe a bit.
Yeah, there's a different feeling around the club. this season. I feel like even the Emirates, you know, I missed the days at Highbury because I felt like, you know, the fans were right on top, so loud. But the Emirates this year has been absolutely rocking. The fans are right behind it. I mean, fair play to WRIGHT, because I was talking about Mikel Arteta potentially not being the right man for the job a couple of seasons ago, and, you know, how wrong was I? And it goes to show you the patience you can have within a manager, but you can see what he's doing. You know, there's a feeling, and you have to have a little bit of luck sometimes. But the recruitment, I mean, imagine how amazing this would be if Jesus and Zinchenko won the league at Arsenal, not getting carried away, and Pep just kind of allowed them to go over, because it was almost like Pep was like, well, they can go because we've got a good enough squad. But can you imagine if that happened?
That would be a very sweet moment, I would imagine, for Mikel Arteta at the end of the season, with those, and for those two players as well, you know, thinking that maybe City were going to be we all thought City were going to be the front runners at the top of the league, and Arsenal have shown otherwise. In terms of the points that they have, Darren, and you look at the biggest totals that teams have reached after 14 games this season, Arsenal are right up there. They've got 37 points. That's only 3 off what Manchester City and Liverpool managed in 18 and 20. But for Arsenal, at that stage, they are on course, if they average that towards the end of the season, for 100 points. That would win the title in any season, other than the one in which Manchester City did finish on exactly 100 points. This is a phenomenal pace that they're setting.
It really is, and I think that the foundation of it is actually their defence rather than their attack, because they're providing a fantastic platform for the guys like Odegaard and Martinelli and Jesus and everyone else to express themselves. They've got so much depth in that defence. They've got the consistency of Saliba and Gabriel. They've got Ben White as being a revelation at right back, when I loved Tomiyasu anyway as a right back, and Tierney and Zinchenko at a left full back as well. Zinchenko, of course, can move into midfield where they've got Partey. They've got so many good options. Granit Xhaka has been a revelation
player this year
as well. I think the fascinating thing about the Christmas statistic is that we've never had so few games going into Christmas than we have had this season. But you can't doubt the numbers that they've racked up already. What we know about City is that they come into their own over the winter months. So in all the seasons where they've won the title, they've been formidable over, you know, October, November, December, January. But of course, this is a season in 2 halves. So we don't know how the season's going to restart. We don't know what's going to happen to key players at the World Cup. There are so many different things. But in terms of what Arsenal have done, I agree. We talk about players maybe coming to the end of their time at a club, without necessarily criticising them, respecting what they've done, but accepting that they've got to move on. And Odegaard is a fantastic representation of what Mikel Arteta wants in a captain. A young man who hangs on his every word, sets a fantastic example, leads by example on the pitch. It's very mild-mannered, very unruffled, unfussy, but he gets the job done. And I think he epitomises where they are right now.
You know, as well, Kels, is the spreading of the goals around. I think Odegaard's the most with 6 league goals. And when you look at the amount of work that Jesus puts in, Arsenal are now recognising that they have to make sure that they crash in the box. They have to get in the box, and that is why, at the moment, it's working very, very well, because we're getting people in the box with goals. Xhaka, obviously, Odegaard's scoring goals, Saka's scoring goals. So we're getting goals from everywhere. And I think you have to also look from City's point of view now. So if I'm City, I'll probably sit back and say, OK, OK, Arsenal are the runners with us now. It's not Liverpool. Let's see how they go. OK, now they're 5 points ahead. Now they're the ones that we're chasing. We know that City can put the pressure on. The pressure can actually now come off of City, and they could like relax and start playing. But like at the same time, Arsenal with such a young squad, you know, whatever happens this season, I'd love them to finish it off. It's going to be tough, but I think they learned a lot from last season, especially the running, and that hopefully will stand them in good stead.
You won the league, right? Is it better to chase or be chased?
I think it's better to chase for some reason, because when you're going in and you're up there, you're always nervous about what you haven't got anywhere else to go. You've just got to keep winning that next one on. And if you draw, you're hoping that they lose. But when you're chasing, momentum of chasing, you can chase, you get closer and closer, and that will make them start to feel a little bit more nervous. But then you get in the lead of it, and then you think to yourself, oh my gosh, we're in the lead now. So this is why I'm worried with Arsenal with the 5 points, is that they completely, Kels, just think of the next game, and hopefully, you know, if City lose, they can win again and get that cushion, because at some stage they're going to come up against some problems. You look at the Brighton game with the second string, Kels, you know, it looked like, okay, they're definitely going to need some stuff to happen in January, because the way Brighton, with a very good experienced team, dealt with Arsenal in that cup game, I wouldn't say it was worrying, but it was like... Okay,
in the Europa League as well, it's like that when they play their
it was a
second
worry
string.
to see the second string and how they were dealt with Brighton. So there's a lot to put into the mix for this to happen, for Arsenal to win the league, and that's what it's about as a fan. All these things are about the hope, and hoping this goes right and that goes right, so it can happen.
But also enjoying the moment, enjoying being
Arsenal
5 points clear at the top of the table.
I feel like they feel like they can't.
Yeah.
Because everyone's expecting them to just slip up.
Yeah.
I mean, in the week that you lost to PSV and then you drew with Southampton, everyone's like, oh this is where they're going to, fall off. No, they bounced back again, and I don't think an Arsenal last year would have won against Wolves in the way that they did. I feel like they couldn't handle the pressure.
The fans as well, Leanne, the Ashburton Army, and the way that they've got these young fans right behind that goal over the clock end, they're just singing continually. I think that's not happened to Arsenal for many, many years, and they are actually getting these players through it. They're getting them through it. The fans are making a big, big difference as well.
It's a fantastic atmosphere, as you say, at the Emirates this season. It's all that positivity around Arsenal. And if Arsenal miss out on the league title by the end of the season, it's not going to feel any better just because you didn't celebrate this moment at this stage of the season. So you've got to enjoy all the steps along the way. Just to rain on your parade a little bit, I mean, you did say Arsenal have it in their hands, which is true, but they also have to play City twice. So City also have it in their own hands as well, because there's the rearranged game from September the 15th, and there's the game at the Etihad as well that is still to come. So there is, and that's what, late April sometime, I think 15th of April, no, later, 29th of April. 15th of September was the rearranged one that's got to come in, and then the 29th of April when they meet again.
Well, a good thing about that
could be huge.
Yeah, it will be huge. It will be huge, especially if Arsenal can keep up
6th.
what they're doing, simply because you've got to try and stay in front of them. So then if you do go to City, and we've seen that City can be breached, I can't see Mikel going to play against City and changing anything the way he's playing. So we've seen that they can be breached. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you win the kind of games that if you go into those games, and if you do drop points, you've still got a little bit of breathing space, so as you can. And then it's about beating the rest. The teams like a Newcastle. Can you imagine going to Newcastle latter stages? You know, Villa, if they continue with their research. All these teams that will find some form in the second half of the season, Arsenal cannot afford to lose to them, or they've got to be beating them away from home. So the more points you can build up now to give you that cushion, the better it can be for you.
Should we be talking more about Newcastle? They're 2 points off Man City, and they've played a game more, admittedly. But are they in the title conversation?
Yes, I would have to say yes, because they're in it. They're in the conversation.
I'm not laughing because it shouldn't be, but I mean, they've completely exceeded everyone's expectations already. I don't think the new owners expected them to be in this place, and that man Eddie Howe's done an amazing job, hasn't he? Like, he really has. And Botman, you know, Shah, it's not just Callum Wilson, it's the midfield, Guimaraes, you know, unbelievable signings. And I think when they had the takeover, everyone's talking about Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, but look at the management. He's developing players, you know, Willock, players, Almiron.
The form of Almiron.
You know, these are players that people think, and he's getting the best out of them. That is, for me, Joe Linton, converting him into a different position. Like, the best managers for me know how to get the best out of the individuals, and he is doing that. So maybe they are in with a shout, but it feels weird to say Newcastle are in a title race.
It's got that same vibe of Leicester at a certain stage. You speak about it because you can't see Newcastle being in a title race. You know, because we look at Man City and Liverpool and Chelsea and Man United, you look at so when you see a Newcastle or a Leicester in and around it, you say, yeah, well, that's going to fall off at some stage. Now, Eddie Howe will not be thinking anything to do with the title because they're just happy to get themselves in a position where they're in and around there. But don't think for one instant that if they're in and around it and City keep dropping, maybe drop points and that, and they're going to say, oh, we're not going to go for it. Of course you are. But at the moment, they're very happy that everybody's keeping a lid on what they're doing. But like you say, look at the points. I
tell you when it will take off is if they beat Arsenal, because they play on the 3rd of January. And that is a game that's going to be fantastic after the break, because that will tell us a lot about whether Newcastle are serious title challengers and about whether or not Arsenal are serious contenders.
Yes.
I think it will. I mean, again, the Newcastle are built on really good, strong, solid defensive foundations, and that was one of the first things that Eddie Howe did when he got to the club. New goalkeeper, Sven Botman and Fabian Scherz, centre-half, have been fantastic. Kieran Trippier at right back has just, well, he's brought the quality everyone hoped he would bring to the table, and Matt Targett at the other fullback position. But 6 of the 11 players at Newcastle, I think, who finished the game were there pre-takeover. So it isn't even as if they've used all the money to bring in A-list players. They've just been really sensible with the recruitment, and I think that's the reason why they've managed to surge up the table. And when they play that game, I think it's going to be a really tight game between the two teams. But I think the winner of that is going to be really optimistic about what the second half of the season could be for them. But I don't think either side is going to fade away. I think both sides are really strong.
You know what, as well, Kels, with I was going to say with Newcastle and the way that they're playing, it's like the way they've bought the players, and it's not like. It's like how Man City done it. They brought in the Les Scotts and the Gareth Barrys and the James
Chelsea.
Milners.
The first signing for Chelsea was Glenn Johnson.
Glenn Johnson. So what's happening is, Kels, is that if I'm on the outside looking in at Newcastle with what they're doing and they're in and around it, and I'm one of those players that's looking to come here as a top player, now all of a sudden Newcastle, they'll pay good money. They've got an unbelievable fan base. All of a sudden, this is an attractive place to come to. So what they're doing at the moment is they're laying foundations for players to look in and say, well, that is a place that I could go to as well. It's
such an amazing turnaround in a short space of time. You know, it wasn't long ago, the hostility at St James's Park under Steve Bruce. And now look, I mean, I thought it was quite amazing at the weekend when you saw all the players, you know, going to the fans. At the end, there's feelings around clubs. And you're right, you know, with regards to Leicester, it's that feeling, isn't it, that you get within a team. And for me, one of the performances that sticks out with Newcastle is the Tottenham away win, because I think everyone expected Tottenham to come back into that game. But defensively, they were unbelievable. And at times, they looked like the home team when they're playing well, organisationally, everything. And a lot of that has to go down to Eddie Howe, because I think people disrespectfully said he was almost like a stopgap manager during that time. Put some respect on the man's name. He's been brilliant. Yeah, he's been fantastic. And Newcastle right in the mix. The only reason we're not talking about Manchester City is because we all know what City can do and have done consistently over the last few years, and they are very much...
Arsenal sitting top of the pile. Stop smiling, Darren. 5 points clear at the summit, the Gunners on 37 points. They're ahead of defending champions Manchester City, who are second on 32. Both of them have played a game fewer than Newcastle in third on 30 points. What a season it's been for Eddie Howe's Magpies, with Spurs in that final Champions League place on 29. United are in fifth, 3 points shy of the top four. You've got Liverpool, who are 7 points off the top four with the game in hand. Other notable teams, including Chelsea, who are in 8th place, and the Graham Potter, 8 points off the top four. At the other end, so Wolves will prop up the table until Boxing Day at the very least on 10 points. 4 points adrift of safety. They're joined in the bottom three by Southampton and New Boys Nottingham Forest. Everton and West Ham, it's going to be a nervy time for them across the festive period. They're just safe by a point. Leeds are 2 points clear of the drop zone, and Bournemouth 3. So what happens when the Premier League resumes? In a few weeks' time, these are the fixtures to look forward to. The London derby between Brentford and Spurs, as is the case at Selhurst Park between Crystal Palace and Fulham. A big game involving two strugglers, Everton against Wolves. That's huge at Goodison Park. Leicester City, who've been finding form but possibly breaking off at just the wrong time. Same case for Newcastle United. The two meet at the King Power Stadium. South Coast derby between struggling Southampton and Brighton. Aston Villa, who've won 2 and 2, up against Liverpool at Villa Park. And the league leaders Arsenal take on West Ham in another capital affair, that in North London. Then on Tuesday, Chelsea against Bournemouth. Manchester United at home to Nottingham Forest, and then the only fixture on Wednesday between Leeds United and Manchester City. Now, at the start of the season, from our pundits, we got their predictions for things to look out for this campaign. So we thought we'd pull yours out, Michael.
Oh, thanks. Is it good?
Easy target. So we've gone for your champions, your predicted top four, overachievers, underachievers. Let's have a look at these predictions one by one, shall we?
You never told me this was coming.
I know, but I love seeing you squirm, Michael, I have to say. Champions Manchester City, which I have to say, it wasn't a hard guess, I suppose, but tucked in behind Arsenal right now. What do we think?
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that. I'm not going to change my mind there.
I think Darren might have a say or two.
No, listen, I still would have Manchester City as champions. I'd certainly agree with that. Arsenal going about their business really well, but you can't look past Manchester City, still, even in this stage of the season, but I'm hoping.
Yeah.
Safe pick from Michael. I think many people might have gone for Pep Guardiola.
Well, some of the others weren't so safe.
Hang on, we haven't finished yet. Let's have a look at the others who he thinks are going to finish in the top 4 along with City. Liverpool, Chelsea and Tottenham.
Yeah, that's looking dodgy, isn't it?
Yeah. I have to say, have you been surprised with how Liverpool's season has panned out so far?
Yeah, of course, and even more so Chelsea. Chelsea are below Liverpool, so that's looking quite difficult at the minute. Maybe one of them will sneak in there. Newcastle looking very strong.
Do you think they can maintain that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Do you?
I think they can. Yeah, I mean, maybe not to the level they're at the minute, but I don't think they're going to fall away, put it that way. I think they'll be in European places, whether it's Champions League or you know, Europa League or whatever. But yeah, they could be here to stay.
Yeah. Manager of the Year pick? Do you remember who you went for?
Ah, well, this is a bit risky. hang on. Let's just say the good one. Haaland, that was maybe an obvious one.
I want to go with Manager of the Year, if you don't mind.
OK.
Steve Cooper of Nottingham Forest.
Yeah. It's probably an average shout, isn't it? Hey, if they stay up, then he will have done well.
I was going to say, I mean, look, clearly the pressure was almost insurmountable at one point.
Yeah.
But then they came out with a new contract for him, so he's been given the confidence of the board.
Absolutely.
And if he does turn them around and keep them up, that would warrant a manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And they won their last game, so it might not be such a stupid call by the end of the year. Listen, if they finish 17th out of the relegation zone, then don't get me wrong, it might not be the greatest shout of all time, but it's I can hold my head up high.
He's gone out on a limb there, hasn't he?
Oh, it was obvious, like someone like Pep Guardiola, but I didn't want to just say that, so I thought I'd go for
Eddie Howe, Marco Silva.
Eddie Howe I should have gone for Eddie Howe.
Once he wins the league.
Mikel Arteta. Would he have been manager of the year?
If he wins the league,
if he wins the league, of course. But mind you would think top 4 minimum now as far as Arsenal are concerned.
Has to be.
Yeah, OK. Well, incredibly, that's it from us. Michael, great to see you. Well done with that. Darren, good to see you too. Hope you've enjoyed it. It has been an incredible match week to wrap up this Premier League season so far. And as strange as it sounds, we'll see you on Boxing Day.
Ever record after 14 games, but the last 5 times they've led at Christmas, they haven't gone on to win the league. It's slightly different because, of course, it's an earlier Christmas, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But, well, they're doing everything they can. It's as simple as that, Arsenal.
Absolutely. We talked about Christian Eriksen, his football brain. Odegaard's got one of them brains. I mean, he's an incredible footballer who plays the game and sees the pictures. When everything's frantic, he sees the pictures. I'll still stand by. I said on social media yesterday, I got a bit of flack for it. I'll still stand by being a little bit grinchy. When they come back, Arsenal have got 4 of the top 7 to play. West Ham next, which are West Ham's not in the top 7, I get that, but a London derby, then everyone else in the top 7. Teams like Man United, teams like Tottenham, teams like Brighton.
They've got to
roll them over.
They've got to play City twice and Newcastle twice still.
I'll hold firm.
You're allowed to be grinchy, fair enough.
I'll hold firm a little bit. Yeah. But what I would say is this Arsenal team's the real deal.
Yeah.
100% they're the real deal.
Arsenal beat them teams. Arsenal stand up and play them, go toe-to-toe, and they've done it up to now. Why can't they do it after when they come back?
They caved at St James's Park last season.
Tottenham don't. And I'm talking about this season. Yeah. I'm talking about this season. Tottenham don't beat them teams. You need to win them head-to-heads. Tottenham haven't done it this year. They've been, like, they drew at Chelsea when they got outplayed. They got a football lesson off Arsenal. Man United beat them at Old Trafford. They got beat by Newcastle.
And beaten by Liverpool. Yeah.
I mean, they don't. But
this is the real deal, isn't it? This
I think Arsenal do. Arsenal do. It's the same thing. Let's take Man City out.
Sure,
they can
exactly.
Win the league.
Yeah. And Odegaard, as you said, he's actually scored more goals than Jesus now with his couple of yesterday. Because because they do share the goals around. Now, Tim, you as a manager, does that make you happy, or do you think, I'd rather expect somebody to be my obvious outstanding goal scorer?
Yeah, I want Jesus. I think he can be.
Yeah.
I never think he's ever going to be a 25, 30
never
goal
going to be
season
Harry
man.
Kane
Of
or
course
Haaland,
he's not, but he gives so much more to the team. And what he has given, along with Zinchenko, is a belief of knowing how to win. Yeah. I mean, he's brought some winners in there. They've won it. They've won the Premier League. That's what's incredible about the Man City squad. I mean, they've given Arsenal 2 players, and they're Arsenal's 2 best players. I mean, he's made the others very, very good. Martinelli, we see here, has been outstanding as well. Odegaard, as Don says. I mean, Odegaard and Haaland, 2 good players, play for Norway. The rest of them must be terrible for them not to go to the World Cup.
I spoke to a mate of mine, Jan Fjortoft, yesterday, and he obviously knows Martin Odegaard since he was 15, and he's been at some brilliant football clubs, played under some terrific managers, but now I think he's becoming a man even though he's young.
Yeah.
And he plays the game like a man because he's been around since he was 15, playing at trying to get to the very highest level.
Yeah. At Real Madrid,
got the armband on, so that gives him extra responsibility. That makes you proud when you skipper a team like Arsenal.
At 0-0, certainly if you're a Wolves fan, or Man City fan, or anyone else at the top there apart from Arsenal, you felt the Wolves should have had a penalty. So let's ask Chris and his view on it.
I was torn. Torn.
Chris, good evening, Chris. What did you think about this? Because it was a critical moment of the game at 0-0. I mean, not only would it have been a penalty, it would have probably been a red card as well for Saliba. So what's your reading of the situation?
Yeah, I think it all stems at the beginning from the attack, doesn't it? When Guedes moves forward, Darren Cam, the assistant referee, is running forward, doesn't wave the flag, doesn't put the flag up for offside and holds it, and only puts the flag up when Guedes gets involved in active play. And then there's a collision in the penalty area. The referee blows the whistle, and of course the VAR on this occasion was Mike Dean, and he checks whether he feels as though that the referee's made that clear and obvious error. But I think it's a decision, this one, for the on-field referee, Stuart Atwell. He didn't feel as though it was a penalty. We see the collision there. They didn't feel as though it was clear and obvious. If they felt it was clear and obvious, the referee would have recommended a review. And then, of course, they've got to check the attacking phase of play. And, of course, Guedes wasn't offside, and it would have resulted in a penalty kick. So they restarted with an indirect free kick for offside, and that's how it continued.
Chris, thank you very much. Well, interesting that Mike Dean was on VAR, but it's the most experienced person. Was that harsh on Wolves, or was that just one of those coming togethers?
For me, it's a coming together. I think we stick with the on-field referee's decision.
Yeah.
I agree. No, I thought it was clumsy, but I think I backed the referee and the VAR team on that one.